right, everybody. I want to thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of the Servant Leader Coaches Bible Study. I am your host, Coach Chelsea, and I'm super excited, guys. We have been celebrating 5 years of the Servant Leader Coaches Bible Study. This thing started back during the pandemic in a time and a place of the coronavirus. Nobody ever saw it coming. No one ever experienced something like that. And a group of coaches chose to band together to build bonds, to fellowship, but on one main goal, recognizing that we could just look to Christ. And if we do that, much like many things in our lives, he would not only help us with this unimaginable task and feat to still lead these student athletes, but he would build these bonds that 5 years later we could reach out and connect and watch the evolution of this thing. And so we've been traveling back and taking a leap back into some of our amazing servant leaders. And I had to tap in with one of my favorite. I'm going to say that. I try my best not to be biased, but I am, because not only is she a servant leader, she's a soror of mine, my sister. 5 years ago, we set out on a call, the Servant Leader Coaches Bible Study, and it was Founders Day. What is a Delta? And I had all my sorors on with me. If you did not see it, it's on the podcast. Travel back and go listen to it. But today we have servant leader Krystle Evans with us. She is assistant women's basketball coach right now at West Georgia. I'm super excited to get into the way that God has blessed her, how she has traveled from then to now, 5 years later. And I want to tell you first this, because I never take for granted anyone. I thank you for your time. Time is such a precious gift. I tell people, once it's given, it is not something that could be returned back to you. It has been given. So I thank you for your time. I'm so proud of you. I'm so thankful for you. And I'm going to pass the torch to you to say hello to our listeners so we can get into this conversation today.
I appreciate you having me too, Chelsea. 5 years, that's just, time flies. Like, that's just, I can't even wrap my mind around that. And I'm so proud of you too. You know,
Thank you.
Number 5 in top 40.
Wow. Thank you.
Your podcast is
Thank
growing
you.
at a rapid rate, but it's also inspiring others too. And you know, that's what we do. You know, and it shouldn't be taken for granted. And so to create a space where coaches can be vulnerable, you know, that coaches can trust the space that you've built and created where it feels safe, not just for us to talk, but to share and learn from each other. So I'm super proud as well. And I'm super grateful to join you today.
Thank you so much for that. And for our listeners, we've been blessed. A lot of times as servant leaders, we truly do not do what we do for accolades. And the other day, received a link that showed that the Servant Leader Coaches Bible Study that we all share, this entire platform that we all share, was ranked on a website in Servant Leader Sports Podcast. Out of 40, we were the number 5th spot. And that is a blessing. It's a testament truly that God will work if you just say yes.
Amen.
And speaking of that, yes, you know, I want to jump in this way. You know, as servant leaders, my grandma used to always say, you know, you got to learn to serve the Lord by yourself. Right. And we all have our own road to finding Christ and serving the Lord for ourselves. I want to take a brief moment, and everybody has that story, right? And some people say, well, mine ain't like that. If you found Christ, it's a story. And I just want you to take a few moments, allow the listeners to just hear your heart. How did you find Christ for yourself?
I love how you said for yourself. Particularly for me, my grandmother is a retired pastor, Reverend Dr. Diane L. Johnson, retired from the United Methodist Church. And so all I knew was church. And I'm specifically saying church, right? Out the womb, had to work in the church. You know, by the time I was a teenager, I was already a youth director in the church. I knew a whole lot of roles, knew a whole lot of titles. I think is why I'm able to be a recruiting coordinator now, because I was making bulletins, typing them, folding them since I was in elementary school, right? So it wasn't a matter of, are you going to go to church? And I'm really being intentional with my language. You had no choice. You're going to go to Sunday school. You're going to go to church. You're going to go to vacation Bible school. You're going to go to everywhere. Even when I was serious into basketball, you know, that was something my grandmother and my parents, they didn't play about in regards to making sure my foundation stayed solid. So I still had to go to Bible study before I go to a practice. Like, I was that kid. That was a non-negotiable, right? But when it became for yourself, the first time I tore my ACL was going into my senior year of high school.
Wow.
Where I'm from, we don't talk about depression. You know, we don't talk about, I don't feel like myself. None of that. That was all taboo, especially back then. That was 2005. Okay. And my godmother, she's a pastor. Well, she was a pastor as well. And after my surgery, I'm laid up in the living room. I'm about, at this point, I'm 17 years old. And it's the first time I actually questioned God. Like, I do everything right. You know, I obey my parents. I'm a straight A student. I was valedictorian. Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm a good teammate. I'm a good person. Everybody comes to my house all the time. Like, how does this happen to me? And my godmother came with A Purpose-Driven Life. And I read that book while I was rehabbing. And that was my aha moment. And when I got to UCLA, I joined Faithful Central Bible Church. And my grandmother and I had a real heart to heart because I grew up in the United Methodist Church. She had the largest congregation in the UMC, but it's still smaller than the mega church I joined while in undergrad. And for my grandmother was, you know, when you're sick and you shut in, that bishop is not going to come see you and all. And it's like, Grams, this is the first time I'm actually doing something for me when it comes to my spiritual journey. I need you to just be happy that at 18, I want to do this. It was the first time I got to even go to a new members orientation because I was just, you know, Pastor Johnson's daughter. Like,
Right.
you know, so that was my moment where I want to say strengthen my relationship with God one-on-one, because it wasn't because grandmommy said. And then grandmommy turns into grams when you get older. It sounds a little hipper because you might hear me say grams and then that was the first time it was for me. And that was the first time where it's like, hey, I accepted the fact that broken crayons could still color, because man, that man had me coloring out the lines and inside the lines and everything else to grow me in a way I would not have grown without being humbled through that injury and having to literally lean on him and only him and not what others told me it's how it's supposed to be. You know, that was the moment.
I think that's amazing. And I'm sitting here shaking my head because I'm like, did somebody tell her my road? Right. Because mine was a little two-tier, right? And it started mainly with what you said. I tore my ACL going into my senior year. And what many people don't know and understand is in that summer of after your junior year and prior to your senior year is huge and pivotal for recruitment. It's huge. And so you're dealing with a lot of emotions because it's like, wait a minute. Then you probably were dealing with, I would hope not, but more than likely you were dealing with people telling you, oh, that's gonna work. It's over for you. You're not, and if you do, you're not gonna be the same, right? And these are now people who are like, wait, I thought y'all had my back. And so then you deal with people like probably Grams and people that love you most who maybe weren't athletes. So they support us, but it's like, all right, come on now. And we're smart and we have a lot of other things working for us. So no, the future isn't over for us, but our future entail ball. And so it does leave you question like, now wait, I worked hard. I'm not perfect, but I don't get in trouble. I'm focused. I do what my parents say do. I go to church every time the church doors open. Why me? And I was the same way. And I'm laughing because my coach at the time for AAU, and I'll never forget it, our first tournament, when we were headed to Kansas, I just found out I'm not going to be able to go now. And before she left, her name is Sabrina Douglas, she gave me The Purpose-Driven Life.
Stop it.
I kid you not.
Oh,
I kid you
my
not.
God.
And if I went into my storage and grabbed it, I would be able to pick it up for you and see her writing in there in the note she wrote to me. That's why I was sitting here like, wait, what? Who tapped her in? And then
that's mind-boggling, because my godmother was saying like, hey, some things aren't for our understanding. And I'm hoping that this book can get through to you compared to any book I ever given you, because she gave me a book for every birthday and every Christmas. It was just a different type of Bible. But the reality was, through my injury, that was the first time through the sport I could be a blessing to somebody else, where I could vaguely remember it. To your point, mine was Oregon Trail back when that was the big tournament, right?
Yeah.
Gym packed with coaches. I go down, I look up, people leaving. Shape how I am as a recruiter right now. I'm there until the end.
I love
literally
that.
to the end, because I remember that feeling like, dang, right?
Yeah.
But the other piece of that, I was in denial. like literally in denial, get off. They do the little hand test. You know how that is. And I hear the pop during the hand test. And I look at my coach and I look at my dad and I'm like, see, I just needed to stretch. I was just stiff. And I'm trying to get up and everybody's like, no, like that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Well, one of my teammates couldn't go to the other tournament. Like we were going to go from Oregon to another state, somewhere else, whatever. And once we realized like, hey, you really can't go anymore. My coaches are like, hey, no, you can still travel with us. You just can't play. You'll be a great coach. You know that speech.
Yeah, of course.
And it was my mom. And my mom is probably one of the most selfless people I know. And I can articulate that now as an adult. I didn't get it when I was younger. She said, no, we're going to let Sonia take your place. At that time, my teammate had no offers. Let Sonia take your place. That teammate got that exposure. That teammate signed with Cal State LA.
Wow.
When I mean, all the assists that I've had throughout my career, number one in the state of California, just all that stuff. The best and the most memorable assist of my career is Sonia replacing me in those tournaments and getting her scholarship to Cal State LA. I'm actually getting choked up thinking about it.
Oh, that's a blessing.
I'm so grateful for that. Like, that's the first time I could say, like, ooh, to be a blessing through the sport.
That's so amazing. But, Coach, here's the thing. We talk about servant leadership, and granted, we'll delve into that a little bit more down the road of this call. But truly, when you talk about servant leadership in action, and especially at such a young age, see, servant leadership, and I tell people this all the time, you can say it, right? It's a tagline for so many things. It's on so many books and things, and I get that. But where it really touches my heart is servant leadership. And it's so beautiful, a great segue, because for the 5th year, we've been talking about the sacrificial servant leadership, the sacrifice that it takes to lead, right? You know, I never forget my sister. I was the youngest of 4, and I have other siblings as well. But for my mom, I was the youngest of 4, and I'll never forget my appetite and my brother's appetite was always bigger than hers was. But her eyes were always bigger than her stomach. So we would get our food, and I never forget, we would say, you know, hey, I'm calling her out, Ingrid, give us, she gonna be like, why are you calling me out? Ingrid, give us, you know, some of your fries. You know you're not gonna eat them all. I'm gonna eat my fries, you know, and these were Rally's fries, Rally's and Checkers fries, you know, those are tier, yes. And side note, my daughter won't eat them. She says they're dirty because you know they're seasoned. Like, girl. But yes, so we're like, give us some while they're hot. Like, let us have some. You know you're not gonna eat them all. Give us some while they're hot. No, I'm gonna eat them. I'm gonna eat them. So she takes them and she puts her ketchup on them. Mind you, we ain't never put ketchup on them. They don't need them. But she puts her ketchup on there, eats what she wants, but then there's so many left. And that is the time she says, y'all want my fries? And it's like, they're cold and soggy. We don't want those. And we knew you could have given it to us. You just didn't want to. We knew though. And I laughed at what you said because that bridged the gap for me. Servant leadership is truly serving when it is a sacrifice. When you know the benefit of the person you're serving is going to maybe sometimes outweigh you in that moment, but you serve anyway. And so as servant leaders, we have to be mindful to not be like my sister who hoards the fries, knowing share, right? Knowing we can't allow people and feel it's still a blessing when we put the ketchup on it, when we allow them to get cold, right? Servant leadership is truly serving and leading and blessing people, sometimes when it's a sacrifice. And when it doesn't serve us, it serves the person we're leading and those that are evolving around us. And I love that for you and for me, because that just blessed me.
Yes. I mean, and it leads into something that we have in common, even with Delta. It's like, let's go there. The one thing that I'm extremely proud about when it comes to our organization and our sisterhood is the fact that we preach about not being self-serving leaders to even join the organization, right? And that was the first time I ever heard that. Now, granted, it's like I'm 20 years old, I'm a sophomore in college. We talk about self-serving community service in high school, you know, but that was another aha moment for me. Like, am I doing this for others, or am I doing this for me or for the attention of things, right? Like, to your point, what's the sacrifice? What are you in it for?
And that was the beauty, because much like you and much like our stories to Christ, I also love to hear our stories to Delta, our sorority. And much like you, just watching the service. For me, that's the thing. Like my mom, you know this, GOAT, right? Like,
love your mom.
Service, thanks. You know she love all y'all. She always refers back to that call and just prays for y'all and loves y'all. And she just watching her though, because she would even say, you know, I know my baby is gonna look and see what's best for her. She knew that. But the thing about it was not so much of whatever my mom was in, if it mirrored what I saw, which is these women who happen to wear red. I'm speaking from a 6-year-old, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old mind who happen to wear red, but I'm watching them. I know that you teach every day. And even when you come home, which is late, you still are grading or you're still doing our activities, doing our homework, you're tired. But then I see you wake up early Saturday morning to go pass out food, to go do workshops, to go do all of these things. And I'm like, okay. But not only are you doing them, you're taking me and my sister with you.
Right.
And you're explaining to us when we return on the car ride what you all were doing, who we're serving. We were going to the elderly homes, passing out blankets and sitting with them and talking with. We were doing all of those things with her. And she explained, y'all, I'm telling you, and I know it sounds cliche, but it is greater to give than to receive. You got to make sure that you're serving the people around you. It's about your heart. You got to love people like Christ. That's what we talked about in the car, not the radio. That's what we talked about when my sister would share her fries. It's not the radio, you know?
See, and it's split for me because I'm first generation college student. I'm the oldest of my siblings.
Okay.
I knew nothing about Greek life except for what I saw on school days. So we fast forward to UCLA, I tear my ACL again.
Girl. Okay.
Again, now I'm hobbling around on one leg, walking down Bruin Walk, and I see these random Black people. Let me take you to UCLA from 06 to 2010. I was a part of the class that was 0.2% African American.
Wow. Okay.
2%.
Okay.
Literally, people would say you're only here because you're an athlete. I was a political science major. You know, those are the biggest lectures you can even go to at UCLA. So you're talking about like 300 people in a lecture hall, and it's like 2 or 3 Black people, let alone females, like throw that in there. And okay, so I'm like looking kind of lonely now. And the Deltas approach me like, hey, shout out to my chapter of initiation, Pi chapter of UCLA. Okay. They're just like, you know, what you trying to do in a sense, like you're hurt, you looking like you don't have a home, like you don't know what's what.
Right.
They're trying to educate me. They're trying to encourage me to read and search of sisterhood. And I'm like, yo, I seen school days. Y'all hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. Like I'm from South Central. I went to Crenshaw. I did that whole speech. I really did. And they're like, hey, you a poli-sci major. You've heard of Barbara Jordan? I'm like, of course. They're like, you heard of Shirley Chisholm? I'm like, yeah. They're like, they're Deltas. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Now I'm actually interested in your book. You know, that really was my introduction.
I love that.
To Delta. But then the flip side of it was when I really have to sit back and reflect as I'm reading In Search of Sisterhood, certain things look familiar. And it took me back to my middle school where my history teacher, who I was super close to, had certain symbols that I didn't even pay attention to while I'm in there. Man, Miss was a Delta. You know, fast forward to high school, and our school psychologist, who used to come to all of our basketball games, had them same symbols. Oh, snap. TT's a Delta. Then it was hitting me like, every single woman who had played a major role in my educational career, who really took the time to model a behavior that I thought was becoming of the type of person I wanted to be, they were all Deltas. Let alone when they dropped Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan on me. You know, that just took it to another level, you know? And so that was my introduction to Delta. It wasn't, I had nobody who, and I didn't realize there were Deltas at the time, right? And then my mom, that was not her ministry. She knew nothing about that. She thought I was going crazy when she found out I was pregnant. Like she didn't realize I was pregnant. She just saw me one day and was like, "What you doing? Like something not right with you? What's going on?" That type of conversation.
Right.
Fast forward, become a Delta. So encouraged to do the work. Run for regional rep right after our cross, like later on that year.
Talk.
Regional conference in Anchorage, Alaska. So here you go. You heard my whole speech. I'm from Crenshaw. I'm going to hit you back. All this stuff. Now I'm running for leadership in Alaska, out of all places. 1 by 1 vote, beat out 3 legacies. The speeches in my mom car when I was a kid was, you're not going to be the cute girl with a bunch of ugly friends and bad attitudes. Your circle, it better be people that uplift you and going to encourage you to always compete to be the best that you can be.
I love that.
My journey in Delta, I'm going to always be the best that I can be. In my Delta circle is some bad chicks, man. My swords in my Delta circle, yo, they really did train and build a rep for life.
I love that. But watch that. Notice that every part of what you mentioned were individuals who exhibited, not said it, but their lives were the true definition of servant leadership. Because here's the thing, I saw somebody posted the other day, and it's the truth. I'm not truly a leader unless the way that I serve those that I'm leading builds them, allows them to not only become a leader themselves, but then create new leaders. Mm-hmm. And that's what you truly have mentioned to these. I feel like I know these people, right? I feel like people.
I mean, but even think about it, since even in the WBCA, I say this to any and everybody who listens. When you look at Sora Joni Taylor, I'm like, that's a Delta, and you don't even have to know. Yep. Right? Like the way she carries herself, the decorum, the elegance. And yes, I'm going to still coach you up and I'm going to love you hard. I'm like, I'm so proud to say that's my sorority sister that I can look up to, right? Like that just makes us better. We know the list goes on, but Joni's the one that's the most public that people might, recognize. Mm-hmm. But again, she doesn't have to say I'm adulted. The behavior she models is the epitome of what we say we are and what it is that we say we do.
I think that's the beauty, right? That you just spoke how I live and what I say all the time. Because let me tell you, sis, I'm not normally a heavy paraphernalia wearer. The reason why I got better at that outside of the events, right, is because of what you just mentioned about, wait, hold on. My teacher, the guidance counselor, psychologist. And I realized, Chelsea, you are in a huge place, not because you are trying to get the young ladies to join Delta later in life. No. But much like servant leadership, thank you, Lord, much like servant leadership and following Christ, there has to be reminders of our life, right? And just like the word says, let your light so shine that the men and women on this earth can see the good works and glorify our Father in heaven. It's the reminders you had, like, wait, they weren't what drew you to it. You were drawn to the service. You were drawn to what it stood for. But what happened later is I didn't pay attention to the shirt they were wearing, but what I did remember is how they made me feel. What I did remember is how they worked and sowed a seed in my life. All the attributes to what God has called us to be, these women did that. And then wait, by the way, they were Delta women. And I love that because as servant leaders, and in servant leadership, isn't that what God has called us to be anyway? Whether my shirt says West Georgia, Gabi, Texas A&M.
We're talking about symbols, but I'm the same way. So I keep my stuff in the office. Everybody, they see my elephants and everything because for me, we're here. And not just Delta, to your point, as Black educated people, we are in spaces that a lot of times you don't see us. And that's important to me because, again, what behavior am I modeling to make sure that young Krystles out there who were one of 3 Black kids in a lecture to feel like, hey, I belong here. There's a place for me. This has happened before. Like provide a blueprint. But the other thing about symbols, and we try to downplay it when we argue that other symbols probably should be taken down in certain spaces. We've heard those conversations in the last couple of years. Touch on the significance of a Don Staley statue. That is a symbol of hope, perseverance. Here. You belong here. You will do well here. You are going to be successful. It's like, it's so much bigger than just accolades. And I think we get away from that too often.
And I think it's funny you say that because you truly segue into where I wanted to go with this next. Servant leadership, and especially capacity of women, right? I love how, mind you, this is for 100 Black men, but they'll say what they see is what they'll be. And then servant leader Brittany Zell, I love her. She's become a sister and mentor of mine. She's no longer like in the coaching game, but doing great things. And she always would say, well, Chelsea, if we want them to be a woman, they got to see a woman. And she would say it like, it seems like the simplest thing. And it's like, no. Because now we really have to define what does being a woman look like, and are we being that before we ask them to exhibit these things we're asking them to exhibit. And so with all of that in mind and paying attention to what you're saying and knowing you for who you are and all an amazing women you spoke of, even down to Don Staley, right? How have you seen God show up in your journey as a servant leader in spaces where sometimes these spaces don't have women of faith?
Oh,
it was loaded. Man. I know. It was loaded. I know.
Let's start the first time I've actually hopped on your podcast. At that time, I was the senior woman administrator and the head coach at Academy of Art University in San Francisco.
Yep.
I was the only female administrator in the executive senate. I was the only African American leader in that capacity on the entire campus. When you talk about how did God show up, we already talked about discernment and everything through Greek life. I really had to learn how to, you heard me say this off air, develop habits of being able to relay a message that's digestible for others. And I struggled with it and I fought it. The younger Krystle inside of me felt like the ultimate sellout. And I'm being as transparent as possible here. That's the term I was feeling like, you selling out. The professional in me felt like you are trying to get a point across or just do the job in a way that you don't totally lose yourself, but you losing pieces of yourself. God showed up and said, when you losing pieces of yourself, it's time to go. And it was the first time I really had to look myself in the mirror as a leader and ask myself, am I staying in a role because of the title and the attention I was getting at that time? Because I led my team to the NCAA tournament. I was the youngest head coach to do it in the West region when it happened. I was the only one who looked like me when it happened. You know, am I reading my own press too much to where that's outweighing your heart and who you are built to be, who you are made to be? It was the most humbling experience of my career, to be honest with you, because it was the first time I had to look myself in the mirror and say, are you proud of who you are, not what you're doing?
Yep.
I had the most accomplishments in my career as a coach at that time. And the inside rotten as all outdoors because I was losing me and what I was built to be. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong.
Right.
But are you going about things in a way that you're proud of, or that your integrity is still intact, or you could sleep peacefully at night? I couldn't always say yes. God showed up, had a reflection in the mirror for me though. It wasn't one of those lessons where it's like he stopped this. It wasn't that. He self-checked. I had to self-check.
And that's a beautiful part. It's a thing of spiritual maturity. But one thing that stuck out to me, and I wanted to go get it, Luke 6:44 says that each tree is recognized by its own fruit. The beauty of that, right, is that the self-check. Because I tell people all the time, especially those around me, iron sharpens iron. But if I can't check me, if I'm not willing, like I tell my kids all the time, I teach high school. I know you smell you. I know you smell you. Like that's how I'm like, I'm never trying to offend. Boo, I knew you smelled you before I smelled you. I know you did, right? And because you meet them with love, like some of them kind of check, don't put me on blast. I'm not putting you on blast. I'm talking to you right here. You smelled you before I smelled you, right? I just left the gym. Go take this cleanup pack, go clean up. I say all that to say, as servant leaders though, truly leaders in general, the way you self-check yourself, we know, but can we be mature enough to say, yeah, I don't know, y'all. I don't know if I'm moving the right way. I don't know if I'm letting self get in the way. Is this self-serving? And everyone can't call themselves out like this.
And it was just too many. It was and that's why I had to pause to even answer your question, because there's so many instances I can think of. That one hit home in the sense of it was so many things happening in the world. You talked about COVID. Fast forward from COVID, you got George Floyd. You have and we're in California, which is really,
yes.
It was heavy on me in terms of who I am, what I believe in, the safety of kids, and then coaching a predominantly Black team in a predominantly white conference with so much going on, and feeling like, hey, in the role that I'm in, there's certain things I really can't speak to. And the role that I'm in, hey, we got to change some of these policies, not just from a racial standpoint, but from a health standpoint with COVID, and certain things that may have benefited our department in the university in a different way. It was just way too heavy. It was way too heavy, and having to swallow certain decisions. You gotta make a decision as a leader. What type of leader you want to be, and what type of person you want to be, and which one outweighs which.
And I think that's golden, because that's legit. There was a song. I grew up primitive Baptist, right, old school, and then the song said, "Choose what side you want to be on. You want to be on, right?" And it's funny because I hear that playing in my head when even closely linked to something that happened this week. And I said to people who are really close to me, in my career of education, I said, I really want you to know that when I say iron sharpens iron, I mean that. And that means even if the iron now has to poke me because I veered off of what I know I'm supposed to be grounded to do. And sometimes when we navigate into spaces, we can't ever want to be elevated so badly that we veer off of what we know our moral compass has told us how to lean, right? And so sometimes we make these decisions, right? Especially in this business that look good, right? Maybe it's the name, the money, the fame, the agenda, right? The social media outpour, whatever the case may be, because it looks good in the moment. I want you to take a minute and talk about where that faith meets a space and time where you have to truly lean on your discernment when you make decisions. Even now, you just moved to a new position. But how do you allow your discernment and leaning on God guide you as you navigate through jobs, positions, if it's for you or if God has something else for you in store?
Oh, you just literally just talked about my last 2 months. No, in all serious, Coach Joanna here at University of West Georgia, our head coach, she literally had asked me not too long ago, do people ask you why West Georgia? Like, and we laugh about that because the easy answer is why not, right? Like you hear that, it sounds cliche at this point now too. Like, why not West Georgia? Yeah, that's some of it. But the truth of the matter is, when I met Coach Joe at the Final Four, her transparency and her confidence in who she is as a person, let alone a coach, that getting to know her process, that was the first time I felt that type of jolt of energy where it was like, see what could be in a person. Like we say in adults, we can look across the table and see a piece of yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Hadn't felt like that in a couple of years. Okay. Other opportunities arise, and it's like, okay, you have people in your ear, you should wait it out a little bit longer. You're about to hear from this leader. When I felt that jolt, it was bigger than the vision. It was bigger than I want to be a piece. I want to be a part of that. I want a piece of what it is. From the handshake, that she shook my hand the way my grandmother used to.
Wow.
That firm handshake, look somebody in the eye. I'm such and such. Hey, let's sit down. Let's talk. I left that table knowing, one, that I left a great impression. I know I killed my interview. I'm like, I got that job. But the other side of that was, I really want to work with that person. Nothing else mattered. Like literally. So getting to your real question, God shows up in ways you don't always imagine.
You better say that. You better say that.
And for me, like, that feeling, I literally left. I called my mentor. I said, hey, it's nothing but God. I literally said that to her. Like I said, nothing but God. Coach Joe put out a tweet on one day, like 2 days before the Final Four, saying she needed a recruiting coordinator. I knew I needed to make a move. Like I just knew I was in that space where it's like, hey, this isn't for me. I want something different, right? And I saw that tweet, and I'm not joking when I tell you this. You can ask Coach Joe. You can go back and look on Twitter. She posted this message, and it was just her and Coach Webb, the assistant coach. It was like their information, right? Her email's not on the website. So I'm like, I know Coach Webb is getting bombarded with all these emails. This is the only one public. So I send the email to him. I direct message both of them on Twitter. I'm like, they're not going to see this because it's a open message to anybody. So 2 days later, I'm getting on the plane. I had a layover in Fort Lauderdale. And at this point, I text another friend in the business and I'm like, hey, I already saw this message because she sent me Coach Joanna's tweet. Like, hey, this person need a recruiting coordinator. I know you were saying you were thinking about making a move. I already saw it. I sent her a message. I know I need to get in contact with her though. She's probably bombarded. Let me ask somebody if they got her number. 2 minutes later, during my layover, sends me her number. So I text her. And I had my coaching portfolio as a PDF already in my phone. Text her my portfolio. Hey, I already emailed this to your assistant coach, blah, blah, whole 9 yard, right? By the time I got off the plane, so on my layover, I'm in Tampa. Text her, hey, are you available for an interview at 8 a.m. in the morning? When I tell you nothing but God.
Nothing but him.
Interview during the Final Four. Next day, offer me the job. Couple of days later, a couple of other offers, but it didn't matter that West Georgia was a smaller school in a quote unquote lower level conference. What I felt from Coach Joanna was the same thing I talked about Don Staley's statue. It was hope. It was passion. It was, sincerity. It was a genuine person. And when you say iron sharpens iron, when she offered me the job, she said, I heard everything you said you want, and I want that for you. You want to be a Division I mid-major head coach? I'm going to pour into you the way others did to me. When I tell you I was so moved, like, I'm chasing my rabbit. This is my person, right? Yes. Why not West Georgia? West Georgia is
That's
like where dreams come true.
beautiful. That is, man, you know what's so crazy though? So often, like, we see it from the outside, and granted, I think one of the most beautiful blessings is a lot of people will ask me often, like, you know that person? You know that person? I'm like, yeah. And mind you, I'm never diminishing you all's greatness. But I said, I need you to understand these people have become family. They don't come to me speaking to me like I'm such and such and I coach here. I said, it was never that. You have to understand that we grew ourselves in a space and time where all we had was humility because I don't care if you coach NBA, NBA, NFL, collegiate, or all the way down to I-9 and Pee Wee, we all were sitting there with no answers. But I'm always in awe of the journey unseen. And what I mean by that is many people look where you are now, where
Yep.
many of the coaches are now, the posts that say, welcome to such and such, congratulations, welcome aboard. And they're like, oh man, that's awesome, man. Gosh, how they get there? But they don't see the build up story leading up to it. And I always call it a point of origin. And I said,
Yeah.
you missed the point of origin because the difference is you saw the finishing product. You
Hmm.
didn't see what it took to lead and build up there. And it's in those moments right there that I know that the person that truly knows that God is who he is, I love to hear the story because there's always a place in there where God kind of shows his flex like, there's no way you're going to think it was you.
Come on now.
A signature. You know how artists have a signature? I tell people I can pinpoint every moment in my life where Christ throws his signature like, just in case you thought this was done in your own might. Boom. And just in that and hearing it, I'm always proud of you. I was glad to see the transition and, that you made a move to the South. But to hear it now and then hear the hand of God in it, that's a testimony.
Man, a week after the Final Four, signed my contract on a Monday, was here the following Tuesday, just moved into my apartment last week. Like, it just kept going where it literally was a faith journey. And we tell players all the time, like, oh, trust the process, have faith. But how many of us are really doing it? And this was the first time I really had to put that to work in a different way, literally. This year, 18 in the business for me. 16 of those years were in California. I had limited myself because I always just Cali. I'm a California girl. I'm West Coast this. That was me. And to stretch myself and to grow in a way that I really wanted to grow and like really fulfill my purpose. My mentor is like, you really got to stretch yourself and get across the country. You have to. Midwest made my stop. Now I'm down south. The biggest part of my decision and I'm going back to Coach Joe because literally that's what it was. It was Coach Joe. My niece just turned 12. My goddaughter is about to go into her junior year of high school. And my youngest goddaughter is about to start elementary school. I want to make sure that I'm working with people that I am not ashamed of my youngsters who are looking up to me and looking at me. I want them to see them too. I don't have to hide them. I don't have to, I don't want you around my kid. I needed to be with somebody that a model behavior that I want my young kids. I don't have biological children. I need them children to see this too. And to see our relationship, our working relationship. Because we're nothing alike. We're quirky. We're both nerdy in a way. We're cool nerds though. But it's just our differences, all that good stuff. I needed them to see that. I want my youngsters to be able to see other go-getters, other visionaries, others movers and shakers who are doing things the right way, a respectable way, a way that is becoming of a coach. And when I call her Coach Joe, that's a term of endearment. I call all my mentors, I still say coach. All my coaches is coach. I can't call anybody personally. It doesn't sit with me. I want that for my youngsters. I do.
That's such a beautiful thing, right? But for me, I think why I've always respected you is because it's consistent. And what I mean by that is sometimes I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was talking about how a young girl, a young daughter asked her mother, who was an educator, I'm not ever asking you to stop doing what you love, but doing what you love is making me miss out on you. And I need you to choose me. And they were talking about just like, whoa, like, could you imagine hearing that, right? And she was saying, if you were in a school where you were better supported, like this was from a daughter's standpoint. And the mom was like, I didn't really realize that she had put all that together. And so the importance of how you've always cared what those that look up to you thought of you, but not only that, building a space for them that what they see of you in your walk will help them in their walk. That is servant leadership at its finest. And that is why my respect and love for you has always been where it was, because you do it in a way where I don't have to yell from the rooftop. It is evident by what you do. And many people will serve the masses and forget home. And the fact that you serve the masses and it is intentional because I needed to serve home, that is why you will always have
I
respect.
appreciate that so much. I really do.
Yeah.
That means the world to me because, I mean, to your point, we don't always get it right. We don't.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do the right thing, you can
Come on.
always get back to getting it right.
Come on.
You made me think about one of my former players. I literally just talked to her earlier today. Like, hey, you want to get into coaching? This person they need an assistant coach. You'll be perfect for it, right? Love this kid to death. I coached her for club ball with Cal Sparks, and then she came over with me to Academy of Art, was my point guard, a true leader. Alyssa Munn taught me the most valuable lesson as a coach. She's my point guard, so she gets it the most, right? And I was point guard, so of course we're naturally normally a part of those kids. That's just how it is. Different. That's how it is. It must have been one of the days where I was just on one, and I'm on Alyssa about a turnover, and it really wasn't her fault. I go back and watch film, I'm like, I was bugging. It wasn't even Alyssa.
Tripping. Yeah.
And I call Alyssa, and I say, hey, I owe you an apology. I was done. She said, Coach K, it's okay, because who else can you go off on in that moment? And that stuck with me to this day. And Alyssa was only a sophomore, right? And I had to pause. Because I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure parents do with their kids too. They know which kid can take it versus which one, and that kid probably had nothing to do with it, whatever the case may be, but they know. Self-check moment again. Because the conversation led to, Liz, I hate that you are right, but I got to do better, because just because you can take it doesn't mean you should always have to. And that's a lesson I need you to hear from me. Because as women, we do it all the time. And a lot of people, I don't want to say women, but women, we do it a lot. We know we could take it, so we just take it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. There's times when it's necessary, and there's times where we're just volunteering to be an emotional tampon or emotional punching bag, whichever one you prefer. It doesn't mean we have to or we should. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Right.
I need you to know the difference. I'm so appreciative of Alyssa because she made me a better coach in that moment. She made me a better leader. She made me a better person. I learned that from the player. And that's literally how we evolve in this business. It's not one dimensional. It's not just top down. We learn from them because the whole thought process is we are serving young people. There's lessons in service.
Yep. Come on now. Don't you do that.
It's the truth. It's lessons. It's
Come on.
Service. And I love Alyssa for that. Like I always reflect to that moment. Like about at least twice a year, something pops off and I think about Alyssa. Like, this is an Alyssa moment. Don't you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm telling you, so many stories intertwine. I was a point guard. I have a point guard right now. And we were born one day apart. She's December 1st. I'm December 2nd. There's so many things that align. There's things she was able to see some film. And I tell her all the time, like, you're going to be one of the best things. Like, I want you to be better than me. Right? We will be graduating from the same school when you graduate from God, because I coached where I went to school. I was like, be better than me. Like, I want you to go down and people say you're the best point guard to come out. So I challenge her. Like, my knees are jacked up now, but I still make sure that I get out there and challenge her, knock her over, whatever. But she's the same way. And I remember she said something similar and I'm like, yeah, but no. And she we'll hold it. And then later she was like, well, that's what I was trying to tell you, but it was cool. It's not. And I appreciate the fact that you will, like you say, be the punching bag in that moment. But it does teach us and give us a moment at that time to say, hey, just take a step back, show some patience a little bit and hear them. Because here's the thing. It's a reflection of us too. If we learn to trust them, like, can we trust what we're teaching them? Because if I'm our coach and I'm laying the foundation for you and I can't trust you, who can I really not trust? My coaching? My teaching, right? If they're exhibiting all the things and doing everything that we ask, why can't we trust them? And I've gotten better with that. I've allowed her to take the board. I always think about what's the young lady's name, the Kentucky coach and his guard. And A. Moore. Yes, I think about them. I think about I'm looking at the picture in my head, and so often she'll do it. She's like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but coach, no, this is what I saw. And this year, homegirl, literally, she grew, and so did I. Because she would look at me, she'd say, you got to trust me. And she was right. You got to trust me. You taught me. You got to trust me. And those things come from the simple fact that, like you said, there's lessons in service. And that just, I'm telling you, that's t-shirt worthy, sis. Sure, send it your way because that is. But in that, if we don't serve, we miss those lessons because it truly does go back to who are we serving then?
Right.
That is so good. My gosh, that is so good. See, y'all, I know there's always these people, and I knew this. There's always the ones that I feel like we could just talk and we be like, bye, y'all. And we just keep talking because she's one of the ones that I know this. There's so many connecting conversations and places where we meet on this path and this journey of trying to better those that we lead, which how I look at it and know every day is servant leadership. Christ serve. I always think back to this tweet I saw years ago before Easter, where it says, if you knew you had 24 hours to live, what would you do? Well, Jesus knew, and he chose to serve. And that throws me because people always say that, like, if you had 24 hours to live, what would you do? And we give all these answers. But when you think about that, like, he knew why he came here. He knew that he knew his fate, but he chose to serve. And all he asks is in that blueprint to take care of my people the way that I took care of you. That's how I define servant leadership in the most calm and plain way. Take care of my people how I took care of you. And what that looks like is so many different forms. But as long as it leaves the person better than we found them, and with our truest intentionality of making them better, loving them as Christ loves us, those attributes make servant leadership possible. You and I both know that as we serve, life lives, and you serve and you're leading and you're looking out for everyone. And then life throws a curveball at you where you feel like everybody that I'm leading, they don't even know. Every time I think I'm coming up for a breath, something else comes and takes that breath and requires that breath. It happens to everyone. In those moments, I'm thankful that I know who God is, right? What is that quote, that scripture, that song, that thing? Because I know you have one. Because I'm thankful for Graham, and I'm thankful for my grandma and my mama who had to feed us. See, we refuse. I'm going to tangent for a second. We don't realize why they make us, but they make us because as long as the foundation is laid, even if you ventured out, you gonna come back to it. It's the foundation. And so in those hard moments, we still have to lead. Talk to our listeners about whatever that go-to is, whether it's a scripture, quote, song that helps bring you back to balance and say, God, I know you got me. I know you got me. What is that for you?
So right off the bat, I'll tell you now, I won't complain. My grandmother used to sing it.
Come on.
Almost every other Sunday, it feels like. I won't complain. And every time I feel like it's too heavy or it's overwhelming or I start just letting doubt creep in or I'm questioning, I'm losing myself and all my questions. I can hear her. Like I literally can hear my grandmother singing, I won't complain. And that song, it's just so empowering to me because the other thing that my grandmother used to do, my great grandmother actually, she said every time I would complain, she would turn on the news. And she's like, here you are complaining about something at school and there's worse things going on in the world. So between that whole analogy of the news and my maternal grandmother singing, I won't complain, it literally makes me like chin up, shoulders back. I'm built for this. I got to stop the complaining and just keep moving. Just keep it moving. The other song is more so in adulthood for me, but Mary, Mary, go get your blessing. Go get it. It's something about it, but that's my other go-to song. And it's both of those songs I will literally play on Spotify. Donnie McClurkin did a whole medley. I Won't Complain is in there. And then switch over to Mary, Mary. Just the combination of both. It's like we're not built to fail. I've been given so many different blueprints. As my dad would say, girl is Googleable. Go figure that out. We have been blessed with the talent to be resourceful, to have some figure it out, mentality. But knowing that you're built to go get it and you're not going to complain about the journey it takes for you to go get it. When you flip that mindset from why me, for me to it's supposed to be me and I'm ready, it feels different. It feels different.
Those are two good ones, as my grandma would say. I'm telling you, because truly, like when you think about that, I've had some good days.
Come
I've
on.
had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some sleepless nights. But when I take a look around and I think things over, here's the one that gets me. All of my good days outweigh my bad
Say it.
days.
Say it.
Right?
Say
And
it.
I won't complain. And I think the thing that gets you is because in the moment, it's not diminishing how hard that thing is. But when you take a look around, that's what your
Come on
mama was
now.
saying
Come
when she
on
got turned
now.
on that news.
Come on
As
now.
yes, my moment for me may be tough, but open your eyes and come outside of yourself and take a look around.
Come on.
And then you'll realize, honestly, am I really struck? You know what? I ain't gonna complain. You're right. You're right. You're right. It's almost like
Don't
we
complain.
told you we've been cleaning our
Yep.
rooms, preparing for renovation. And I just felt like, oh man, every time I think I'm done, something else pop up. And then I looked across the hall at, my coworker and friend's room, and I'm like, you know what? Man, I'm good. And I think so often it's not robbing or diminishing or saying that we're not going through. But I
Right.
think when you recognize, and I tell people all the time, when I recognize who I belong to and the power of who I belong to, because I am Christ, He's never, ever, even though we know they say it all the time, He's not going to give you more than you could bear. But
Right.
we know, like coaches, we know what our players can tolerate and what moment they're ready for, even if they don't. Coach, you want me to do that? You don't want me to take that ball out. My players have said that. I'm like, you can do this. I set you all up for this. Don't let the moment be bigger. You're ready for this. And I know it, even when you don't know it. God, I know He look at me and be like, girl, why are you even questioning this? You ready? I know
Come
you
on
are. You
now.
know how I know? Because the bad days, even though the good ones outweigh the bad ones, that was my preparation for you. And so when we can take a look at that, and then lastly, to your point, go get it. Sometimes those blessings, God truly is like, I don't know why you tripping. What you mean? I'll never forget my daughter, Hendrix. She's something else, Ham, your niece. She'll ask me for something, and she's sometimes so drawn into, rather, if she's coloring or she's watching her tablet or playing with her toys. Mommy, she'll ask again, Mommy, I asked for goldfish. And I said, baby, they've been sitting right there. And so often I want us as servant leaders to recognize too that many times God has given us the blessing we asked for. It may be wrapped differently. It may require us to kind of stretch out a little bit. And because we won't move in our comfort zone, come on, East Coast, come on, South, right? You
Yep.
said you wanted a change, but you know what you did? You reached out and you went for it, right? You reached out and said, God, I trust you. You know what? Bet. Come on. We'll take a look at a sign. We'll take a look at all these things. God, like, hey, I'm setting the alley oop for you.
The next part of that, though, faith without action is dead. The other part of
Every
that
time.
story is got on the plane, sent the text messages, but was prepared. I have the resume printed out. I have the good hair ready. Like, so it's not just like, oh, I want to make a move, or oh, this is here, the door is open. You still got to sprint through there. You still have to work it. You still got to be prepared.
Yep. I love that. My God, sis, that is so golden. That is so golden. As we wrap this thing up, so many nuggets dropped today. So many nuggets and so many things that I'm so thankful to God for, because it's one thing when a person, that's why I've been so thankful for this platform over this 5 years, because we see the coaches on social media, we see their headlines, we see them on the sidelines, right? We see their wins and their losses. But true servant leadership is allowing the transparency enough to watch. I know you see that, right? And much like our teams, you see us on game day. You weren't with us during the week, film, right? Scout report, meal, training. You weren't there for any of that. You see the final product. But when we get to sit here and have a conversation with servant leaders like yourself that are fully transparent about, look, I know you see that, but please don't think for a second that if I ain't have God by my side, you wouldn't see that final product. And so I thank you so much just for being open, transparent, explaining the inner depths of yourself to help us be able to get a sneak peek and a look in to how God guides you to do what you do. And now even at this space at West Georgia. Now, of course, you are already a servant leader, right? So for the 5th year anniversary, I have the same question for everyone before we get off. They said it's deep. I don't think so. I just think sometimes I think it is. I don't think it is. But as servant leaders, I love sometimes how we're in the moment though. But at the same time too, many people talk about living in the dash. Many people talk about eulogy living, right? But when you truly are serving those that we lead, because as I always say, I want to make God proud. right? What would you want at the end of your road, all of those that you led, to say about how you led them?
She never cheated us.
Come on.
She gave us her all. My mom used to say, and my parents were young. Like I had young parents. Everybody thought they were my siblings when they would pick me up in elementary school. She would say, Krystle, there's no textbook to parenting. There's no, we're doing the best we can. And now at 37, I could say, thank you, mom and dad. I know you guys literally gave me all and some. You gave me the all that you can. You gave me your best. You did not cheat me. I'm paying that forward. I hope any and every person I've ever come across and is fortunate enough to coach and mentor and guide and just be in their space in some capacity, know that I'm giving them the best, the ultimate best that I got. Nothing in the tank.
I just can't. I feel like the blessing of all of it is I truly sit every day that I'm blessed to do this in like the world's best professional development. I feel like truly. Now, I'm not even trying to be funny. Think about it. If you were to go be speaking somewhere, they would charge a cover fee for you and whomever else they had to sit on the panel, right? To give amazing, now, I'm not saying they shouldn't, amazing nuggets, but we get to do this and the blessing of this, right? And people say, what do you think? Why? I don't know, right? I'm still trying to figure out why the Lord chose me for it. And quite frankly, I'm going to just be obedient and say yes. But I feel like the thank you, the blessing, the prize, the token, the blessing that he gives from it is I get a front row seat to amazing individuals like you with amazing true heart nuggets, not fluff, truly getting the inside scoop, the blessings, the truth of how God brings you through every day to do what you do. So sis, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom, your transparency. We are so proud of the journey that brought you closer to my neck of the woods. As I told you, don't be surprised if you look up and you see me and Ham in the stands because we have been known to do that. But just know that from afar and now closer, you always have family in us, and we are cheering you on and thankful because the servant leader family is stronger because you're a part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate you. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud.
Thank you. Means the world. That's right. That's my soror, y'all. Don't trip. Don't trip. I love it. Well, of course, before we get out, as always, if you are listening to this podcast, please don't close your eyes. Please just listen to us. But as always, we're going to say a prayer to close out. Heavenly Father, we thank you right now for this time. We thank you right now for paths crossing years ago. We thank you for your promise that if we're just obedient, right, you will give the provision for the vision. And I thank you, Lord God, for the ability to say yes in the time of an unknown situation, in the time of why did you choose me, right? But a yes opened up so many things. And I'm thankful, Lord God, because this platform is not mine. It is yours, and it belongs to all of this servant leader family. And what you've done to touch and reach and bless and grow these individuals to begin to just flex their servant leader muscles to produce more servant leaders. And we thank you. So I'm asking right now that you touch my sister right now in her new assignment, and you be with her as she travels, as she's on the home front of University of West Georgia. Help her to get the very things that she's asking for. Help her to grow under this amazing coach. Bless Coach Joe, Lord God. Bless every person that will come on their roster and their team. I ask right now, more importantly, for the listener, those that may not know you, God, I ask that something from this podcast episode, something from this podcast in general, touches their heart so that it allows us to shine the light and help us to decrease so you can increase, and help those that don't know you to find you. In your son Jesus' name, we'll always pray. Amen.
Amen.
I don't have to say you're now part of Servant Leader family because you always are, but I will tell you we're thankful that you're here. We're always here. I know we're going to be talking, but I thank you so much for just being here and keep doing what you do.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, we thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, share it, right? Share it. There is nothing better than knowledge being shared and grown for those that may just need even a single nugget to learn about Christ and servant leadership. So, guys, we thank you so much for listening.